the situation that the 49ers are in right now sure feels a little different than coming out of, 5-0 to start the year. And the truth is, Larry, here's the numbers. I mean, this is the difference. The 49ers defense has given up 769 total yards with only 2 sacks accounted in their last 8 quarters of football. And I really thought that last night, more than they were outcoached or Steve Wilks is the devil or anything like that, I thought it was a player's loss. This loss was firmly on the guys on the field who got outplayed, got beaten at the point of attack, got beaten in their one-on-one matchups. Charvarius Ward, the strip giveth and the strip taketh away. Christian McCaffrey in the end zone twice, fumbled once. They just found zero rhythm last night. They got beaten in time of possession. And Minnesota never came off the field on third down unless it was 3rd and goal. And this could have been a lot worse. They lost 22-17. It could have been worse had Minnesota chosen to be a little bit more aggressive on their 4th and goal opportunities. There was a fourth down that they punted on that normally Kevin O'Connell goes for in that situation. He played conservative, and the Niners did nothing to benefit from how much the Vikings let them hang around, even though they weren't even playing particularly well.
Yeah. And the one part about this game that was bothering me is at halftime, the 49ers were giving up 5.8 yards per carry. This Viking team the week before went up against the Chicago Bears, and the Bears held them to 2.1 yards per carry with the same backs. And the Niners gave up almost 6 yards a carry. So that, to me, was bothersome. Where is the run D? What has happened to the run D? They got gashed in the preseason. Then I think, one of the things that kind of camouflaged their run D problems is their scoring early in the year. When it's hard to win the grimy games when you can't run the ball consistently and you can't stop the run. And I just think that really, like, if you look at the 49ers, schedule and how things have gone for them, did they really stop the run in week 1? Or did Brock Purdy and the offense score a bunch of points? The Rams ran it with Kyren Williams effectively in week 2. Did they really stop the run in week 3, or did they face a New York Giant team that didn't have Saquon Barkley? They did stop the run in the first half of the Cardinal game in week 4, but they also put up a ton of points in that game. And the situation same with Dallas. They put up a lot of points and took away the run game that way. They didn't stop Cleveland's run, even though Cleveland did it without Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford was instead their main runner. And they didn't do it last week. I mean, Jerome Ford and Alexander Mattison are not 2 of the NFL's better running backs. And the 49ers have not been able to stop the run in either game. So how's that going to play later this year when they try to play the Eagles in Philly? The Eagles can run the ball, that's going to be a problem. So, how are you going to do this in the playoffs against the best teams in football? You got to stop the run. And I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if it's the addition of Hargrave. He had one real
Hargrave
nice.
Larry, he's living up to his reputation a little bit. A very good pass rushing D tackle who's a little light against the run. And that is kind of what we're seeing. I mean, I think that reputation has followed him to San Francisco.
But he did stuff Madison for a loss in the first half. So, watching the game again, I didn't feel like he was necessarily the problem.
He might be their best defensive lineman so far of the year. I mean, he really
no
is.
Doubt. Well, to me, there's point right to the Stars. You want to credit the Stars when they win. You can blame the Stars when they lose. Fred Warner couldn't make a tackle last night. He missed at least 4 or 5 tackles. He fell off a number of plays. Greenlaw is awesome against the run, but he's a little dinged up. They replaced their run defending safety tandem of Ward and Tart with 2 guys who have great ball skills, but don't really play the run. consistently, and Gibson and Hufanga. So I'm not sure. It's a team effort and it's a team failure, but Fred Warner, I counted at least 4 or 5 missed tackles
and
yesterday.
He still had 13, which led either team in tackles. A bad game from Fred Warner is still a pretty good game from a lot of other players, but he has a level of expectation attached to him. And you see one guy run away from a Fred Warner tackle, you start saying, well, you don't see that very often. But yeah, Fred bounced off a couple of guys last night. He did not have a great game. And Dre Greenlaw, as overwhelming as he can be, I can't remember the last Niner game where they weren't checking him for something because he's down on the turf. He is always coming up a little, that didn't feel good in like every single game, all the time. And he straps it on. He's out there. He's a very good player, but this defensive line to me is the reason why this team has been underachieving in the last 2 weeks defensively. This defensive line is the reason why it's easy to point at Steve Wilks and say, well, he's not doing the job well. They are the heartbeat of this defense. They are supposed to set the tone for the entire team, and they simply haven't been. They haven't been. Through 7 games. Here are your sack totals, Larry. Hargrave has 3. Drake Jackson has 3. But hasn't had one
all in week 1
game. Exactly. Yeah. So Drake Jackson, we have not even heard his name since the plane left Pittsburgh. So Hargrave has 3. Drake Jackson has 3. Bosa only has 2.5. Warner's got 2. Givens, Heidler, Greenlaw, Gregory have 1. And Eric Armstead has not even a whole. He has a half a sack. 1 half sack for Eric Armstead, who I can't remember him playing in a single game yet this year, Larry. Have we seen Eric Armstead?
He's had some really good moments at times, but it's not showing up in the stat sheet, that's for sure. Now, not all D lineman plays do show up in the stat sheet.
Right.
But I'll give you another one. When they went from Jimmy Ward to Isaiah Oliver as the nickelback. Isaiah Oliver, I'm still wondering what he does well. He can't stay with receivers. He doesn't stop the run. Jimmy Ward would hit you like a linebacker, and he could cover. Now they've got a guy who the coverage is okay at times, but anybody who's really shifty and can double move him, he doesn't have the body control to stay with those guys, and he's not a force against the run. I mean, if anything, they got too many grab and drag tacklers right now. Hufanga doesn't want to hit you. He wants to grab and drag you. And there's a lot of grabbing. There's a lot of, and there's not, what I'm not seeing is I'm not seeing striking and wrapping. That's what I want to see. I want to see guys strike and wrap. And Hufanga will strike you sometimes, but rarely wraps. Oliver doesn't wrap. I mean, they're not wrapping anybody, and they're not going to the ground. I mean, you get, they're in the area, but I mean, like I'm watching Madison run through them, and it's like Alexander Madison is not a star, and they made him look really, really good, and not only that, they're getting screened. So like teams are throwing screens at them to try to neutralize them. And those screens are being effective. I don't know if they're giving away where they're bringing extra blitzers and extra rushers, but it seems like these teams have an uncanny ability to screen the opposite way of the Niner blitz, which almost always equates to a big play.
You're right when you say that a defensive lineman can make a lot of things happen that don't necessarily show up in the box score. And I agree with you, but this defensive line, when it's at its best, doesn't require a lot of nuance to understand what's going on. You know what I mean? Like they're supposed to be an overwhelming presence in the league, not just in a game. They are supposed to be the one you can pack it and take it with you on the road unit that goes everywhere and kicks ass everywhere. And they're not. and they're not. And Nick Bosa wears the crown of reigning defensive player of the year, highest paid defender in football history. And if we're being completely honest, he is in the start of just a guy season. Nick Bosa has played like just a guy. He has got the impact of a league average defensive end at this particular time. And he is being asked to do an awful lot more than that for this team to work. The contract that he got handed is demanding he do more than that. And I'm not saying that the offseason holdout is a part of why last night didn't go well, but maybe it's a part of the reason why Steve Wilkes is not coaching particularly well, because he didn't get enough reps in. But here's the thing. I mean, it's week 7. Like, training camp's over. The preseason, whether you were there or not, doesn't matter anymore. If you were in football shape for week 1 or not, it was week 7. So,
well, I mean, we can talk about it all day. It ain't good enough. I don't care. Whatever he's doing, it ain't good enough.
Right.
A 35-year-old, relatively immobile quarterback dropped back to pass last night on a fast surface that favors the defense 45 freaking times, and Nick Bosa hit him once.
And was that the only QB hit of the game? I mean,
see, here's the thing. Forget these pressures. Pro Football Focus, screw Pro Football Focus. Pro Football Focus, if you went by them, you'd think that Nick Bosa was Myles Garrett. He ain't. Myles Garrett's outplayed Nick Bosa by a ton this year. Look at two stats, sacks and hits. If you don't hit the quarterback, you want to sack the quarterback. If you don't sack the quarterback, you want to hit the quarterback. Pressures, no. I'm not interested in pressures. I'm interested in hits and sacks. They got 0 sacks. They had 6 hits on the quarterback all night.
He was only pressured on 25% of his 45 dropbacks. And again, Kirk Cousins is a statue back there compared to, modern NFL quarterback mobility.